Welcome to Down the Vale, the official Livingston FC podcast. We are here in partnership with Taylor Roofs, using the podcast suite of Taylor Talks Trades. You can check everything out that they do in our description box below. We are joined today, episode 3, Mr. Ryan McGowan. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you very much for coming on. I know it's taken a wee while to get our diaries synced, but
That's all right. Busy schedule at the minute, so delighted to be on. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I was trying to find a link, so I normally try and tie into our last guest, which I know you would have watched, subscribed, liked, and everything else in terms of Marvin Bartley.
Yeah.
Is there a link? I struggled to find one.
I'm not too sure. I probably played against him a fair bit. A few mutual friends and do see him in the gym now and again, so that's probably the closest link you can get. But I've never played with him or.
What does he bench in the gym? It must be something ridiculous, no?
I've only been running. I've only seen him running. I think he pretends to be there a lot more than he actually is. So, he's a big boy, but I'm not too sure what he'd be benching.
Fair enough. I just could not find the link anywhere. I was like...
I think he'd be struggling. Obviously, maybe the Hearts-Hibs connection, but I don't think he was at Hibs and I wasn't at Hearts. Would have just played against him, probably. Yeah. That's probably the closest link you can get.
Fair. We'll go with that. It's not bad. Growing up, we'll start kind of there. Did you always want to be a footballer? What did Ryan McGowan as a kid want to be?
Yeah, always wanted to be a footballer of overseas, obviously, which not because of the A-League now is a pretty good league at the moment, but when I was growing up, it was called the sort of National Soccer League at the time, and it was kind of struggling a little bit, and everything that you kind of wanted to be as a professional was overseas, especially probably in the UK, which was probably the most televised games in Australia. So that was the kind of ones that we wanted to watch, and always knew that I'd probably have to leave home to be able to be a footballer. So I was grateful when that opportunity came, albeit I was probably a little bit too young at the time looking back, but it was just something that probably from the earliest memories I could remember I was wanted to be a footballer, and if not, I was probably going down the line of teaching, PE teacher or some type of teaching. But
was there any other sports that you played when you were younger, or was it just?
In Australia, you kind of play a bit of everything. Obviously the weather helps dramatically with that. So played a little bit of Aussie rules and cricket in the summer, but it was always kind of football was the one for me, really.
I'm going to start with, we're going to have a whistle-stop tour of your million clubs.
It's going to take a while.
We've got quite a few bits. I was going to say. Quite a few bits of paper. I've got kind of 5 this or that's almost.
Right, okay.
So just kind of in general, and then we'll do 5 Livingston ones later on.
Right, okay.
So
perfect.
Edinburgh or Adelaide?
I'll go Edinburgh.
Ryan or Dylan?
Ryan.
Australia call-up or scoring a goal?
Australia call-up.
Ange or Davy?
Ange. I'd rather play for Spurs.
Fair. Vidic or John Terry?
Oh, I'll go Vidic.
Good choice.
Yeah.
We went the same as well. Two very good defenders, and I had about a million names in there and then whistled them down.
Two good defenders that I used to watch growing up, but I'd probably say Vidic.
Good shout. Para Hill Knights, let's start there. How did that kind of come about? And
that was just my local team. It was 5 minutes away from the house. A few of my mates played for them and probably joined when I was 12 or 13. And then, kind of progressed quite quickly. And I was playing sort of first team at 14 or 15, which was good. Obviously playing against fully grown men and getting paid on the side, because I obviously wasn't old enough to be paid. I wasn't old enough to be paid, so my mum and dad used to take my win bonuses and my appearance fees. But it was good. Obviously probably from about 13 or 14, I kind of progressed quickly up the ranks as such. And when I was 14, I was part of the 19s side, and then kind of quickly progressed up. But it's the standards is what it is probably equivalent of a sort of lowland league. I think it is here. There was a couple of us around that age that were obviously quite good at that young age. But it was a really good eye opener for me to be playing with men and getting the sort of tricks of the trade really early on in my career. And I obviously struggled physically I'm not a big guy as you can tell, but even back then I was just all skin and bones. So it was I used to play sort of right or left midfield and was quite quick. So I was kind of stuck out the way of traffic. But it was it was just good to play with like some of those players that I played with during those times had played in this sort of NSL, and they were kind of probably my age now, and it really took a shining to me, and it was a really good sort of grounding and upbringing in Adelaide for sure.
That was going to be one of my questions. Were you always a defender, but
no,
a flying winger instead?
Yeah, I was a bit of a utility really. Even when I went to Hearts, I was kind of sometimes played centre midfield or right back was probably the only time I played was really in the first team, and when I was on loan at Ayr was the first time I'd ever kind of played right back. I was more a centre midfielder or a centre back. And then when I was starting to get in and out the Hearts team, Jim Jeffries used to sometimes put me on the sort of last 20 minutes as right mid or left midfield. So, never kind of always been a centre back, but just slowly kind of grew into that role.
That probably leads us on nicely to Heart of Midlothian. How did that kind of come about?
It was a bit of a strange one. So I kind of got called up to the under 17s Australian team when I was, it must have been 15 or 16, was actually with Ange that took it. And we had a tournament in Japan, which we went, we did really well in. And then he took 3 or 4 of us with the under 20s. So there was 3 of us that went with the under 20s. And obviously that was not big news back then, but, it kind of put me on the map a little bit in terms of, like I said, I was probably 16 and in and around the Australian under 20s. And it wasn't actually long that I got back from that trip. We went to Argentina and Chile that Dave McPherson called, or had sort of earmarked me, I guess, called the house phone. That's how long ago it was, to say would I be interested in coming to Hearts. They were looking for a player of my profile to join the sort of under 20s or the under 19s for Hearts. And he'd watched me in a couple of games for the under 20s and thought that I kind of fitted the bill in terms of what they were kind of looking for. And he was kind of the chief scout of Australia, I guess, for Hearts. And the Hearts wanted to sign me on it was a 2-year deal originally, sort of, is it like YT?
Yeah, YT. Yeah.
So it's just a youth type contract. And obviously I wanted to jump at the chance, but parents were a little bit apprehensive. I think I just turned 17, or it was coming up to my 17th birthday when I was due to fly over. So it was a lot of sort of a big risk at that time, but one that as soon as I heard that they were interested in, I wanted to go and experience it. And lucky enough, I went and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Obviously Australia is massive, so even travelling to Australia would have been a change, but to go to the other side of the world essentially is a massive change of culture and everything that comes with that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, especially in Australia, because like you said, I think in Scotland you get to, Edinburgh and Glasgow is 2 huge cities, but they're only 40 minutes apart. So if you're sort of one of the better players in Edinburgh, it doesn't take you that long to work out that you might not be the best player in Glasgow for such. But it was difficult in Adelaide because it was, such a small place, let alone footballing wise, to then go away with like the under 20s. You see boys that are, played in Sydney and Melbourne and a much higher standard. So it was always hard to try and gauge, if you're one of the better players in Adelaide, where did that rank you amongst sort of all of your age group? And when I went to Hearts, I quickly realised that I was miles away from the standard over here. And but it was good. I took a lot of the stuff that I'd kind of been playing first team, so I wasn't. I was then kind of one of the bigger boys, one of the stronger boys in the team, and I think that definitely helped me sort of integrate into the team and work my way up through Hearts.
Who was kind of in that team when you did join at that sort of level?
David Templeton was there. He came not long after. Gary Glenn, Alan Lithgow he was a couple of years older than me. Trying to think of boys that have gone on to play. Johnny Stewart played for Hearts, now manager at Trinent. So there was it was a good squad that we had sort of in that 19s reserves that really helped me sort of first and foremost settle in and adapt to sort of Scottish football and Scottish lifestyles, I guess.
I was obviously working under the jet at that stage as well.
Yeah, he was a bit later. It was kind of the mad time when I think I went under, loads of first team managers, but I was quite lucky that I was only kind of training with the first team. I wasn't integrated into the first team at that time. So I had Darren Murray, who was my under-19s manager and was really good with me, and John McGlynn was there for a while. So, got to work with them sort of at youth team level, which was good. And then, like I said, when I kind of finally broke into the team, it was mostly under Jim Jeffries.
You had a couple of loan moves away, kind of Partick Thistle, Ayr United, working under kind of managers of Brian Reid, Dean McCall, Jackie McNamara. So Jackie McNamara at that stage is probably quite a young coach and kind of coming through. What's the difference between that and the likes of Ian McCall, for example?
It was really good. Ayr was one that I thoroughly enjoyed. I felt at that time that I wanted to be playing week in, week out. I think the reserve league was okay at that time, but I felt like I was maybe outgrowing it a little bit and just wanted to play regular games. So I was delighted when Ayr took the opportunity on me, and I think I went there and played 30 odd games for them in the championship, which I think was called the First Division back then, and got to play with some good senior pros and again see the sort of ins and outs of championship football at that level and what I needed to do to help them and progress as a footballer, really. So I was always kind of down that loan route as an opportunity for me to go and play, and didn't take it as a sign of that was me out of the plans. And Jim Jeffries was the manager at that time, and he was really good with me as well. Good, send people to my games or to see how I was progressing, and was always kind of earmarked that once I did come back from that loan spell that I'd be given an opportunity and given a chance, and that's kind of what you wanted at that age.
See, your experience from kind of Parahill Knights of being a kid essentially in with male dressing rooms, you went from kind of into the 19s back into another kind of senior dressing room as well. Did that kind of set you up well for that sort of experience?
Yeah, sort of understanding how senior players work and the demands that they have on is totally different to youth team football. And also as you progress as a footballer, you realise that a lot of those players that I was playing with at Ayr, it was a win bonus would be huge for them. Financially, it's not just youth team level where everything's pretty and rosy, and you want to have good clips for the highlight reels to go on to the thing. It's real football and results and decisions and key moments make all the difference. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've taken away from that time is that decision making as a footballer is huge. And I think sometimes it's underrated in terms of when you're looking at players' abilities, do they make the right decisions most of the time? And I've always tried to think that I make majority of the right decisions throughout a game. There's been a couple that I've not over my career, but I think if you make the right decisions most of the time when you're playing, it does help. And again, being a defender, that was probably the first time I've kind of played right back, so it was good to do that at Ayr level, because I knew that that was probably an opportunity for me to do it at Heart. So if I could make a couple of mistakes, obviously didn't want to make mistakes, but it's a lot easier to sort of make them when you're on loan and not in the spotlight as much as you are possibly when you're playing for Hearts.
What is the difference in terms of kind of that 19s level compared to the first division level at that sort of time? Was it a lot more physical? Was it a lot more direct? Hearts try to kind of play a certain style at 19s and you've kind of been thrusted into something else? So. Yeah,
it was a little bit different. We try to kind of play football the right way, whatever that is kind of perceived to be. But I think all youth teams across Scotland try and play football the right way, and then you kind of lose that when you're needing to get results. And that was kind of the case at Ayr. We were kind of down the bottom of the league. I think we got relegated that season, so we were fighting for our lives to stay in the league, and it was kind of any means possible to win a game or to draw a game or just to get something. And it was really good to sort of learn that side of the game. Like you said, sort of under 19s, it's obviously you don't want to get beat, but if you do get beat, it's more of a case of what we could have done better. Whereas at first team level, it's mistakes that can kill you and really hurt you.
Plus people win bonuses and things like that as well, as you said.
Yeah, there's a lot more. You got paying fans that come to the games, travel all across Scotland to come and watch you. So it's kind of up to you to make sure that you are delivering performances to a certain level that the fans can respect. So it was good to learn those types of things at Ayr, and it's why if any young player asks me, even to this day, they got an opportunity to go out on loan and play in a first team, I always think that's probably the best thing to do rather than hanging around the club and maybe getting 20 minutes here and there. I think it's much better. They learn so much more and learn it quicker doing it week in, week out at the first team level.
It's not on the sheet, but we've got a couple of loanies in ourselves at the moment in terms of kind of Macaulay getting regular football, Robbie Fraser getting regular football, Mishak kind of in about it as well. Is that the kind of guidance that you give towards them as well?
Yeah, exactly that. Obviously Macaulay, there's a bit of a connection there because I trained with the sort of Hearts youth team during COVID, so I wasn't allowed back in Australia. Long story, but so I trained with Hearts and he was part of that sort of youth team with John Rankin as the manager. So I was just there to keep fit, and he was one from an early age. He probably would have only been maybe 15, 16, but you could tell even from that early age that he had all the ingredients to go on and make a career. And he's still at that stage where he's trying to find his feet. But I think for him to come to us at this part of the season, especially with the results the last couple of weeks, got a big quarterfinal coming up. We've got a final of the Trust Trophy coming up, still in the challenging for the league. He's going to learn so much more in these 6 months than he would have playing 20, 30 minutes every kind of 3 weeks at Hearts. So I think for his development and his progression as a footballer, I think this 6 months will really help him. And same as Robbie, I think it's just good for them to be playing games, playing minutes, developing, making mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. They're still young players, still learning the game, like we all do. So for them to be able to be confident enough to make those mistakes at this level will help us.
You obviously go back into the kind of first team at Heart Midlothian, you have a major moment, let's say, and a bit of a Hearts hero these days in that special final.
I wasn't sure where you're going, but don't mind talking about that.
How did it feel when the ball hit the back of the net?
Yeah, it was obviously, like I said, it was many years ago and it still gets brought up to me now. So it was a huge moment. I'm probably glad it happened at the start of my career because I'd probably be too nervous if it was to come about. If I was playing for Hearts now and it came about, I'd be a bag of nerves. But I think that moment just kind of summed up everything because from me joining Hearts to that cup final was probably about 5 years. So that cup final moment was probably for me personally the kind of moment where I was like, I've made it possibly as a footballer. And in those 5 years there was a lot of difficult times. I was over here by myself as a young boy, away from my parents and families and all my kind of comforts as such. So there was a lot of lonely nights as such, and that kind of moment was one that I was just delighted to obviously also help the club. They were the club that took an opportunity on me and took a risk, looked after me really well, and gave me a platform to go on and have the career that I've had. So to score in that cup final and win it in such a big game was really special and one that I fondly look back on.
I think it was such a big moment though. It was quite a tricky run to get to that stage. Kind of replays against St Johnstone, replays against St Mirren. Got Celtic in the semi-final, the Craig Beattie penalty with the kind of top round the head and everything else. But was it I think it was 2-1 when you scored to make it 3-1.
Fourth. I scored the fourth.
But that almost kind of kills the game as well to an extent.
Yeah, it's probably one that
kind of party mode from there on.
Yeah, it's probably one that a lot of fans now tell me that was the one that they kind of finally thought, that's it, because we'd gone 2-0 up and then James McPage scored. Just before half time, and it was I think people kind of forget that it was a little bit nervy at half time because we had done so well in the first half. We probably should have been more than 2 up.
So Danny Granger that scored the third.
Danny Granger scored a penalty. It was straight after half time, and they got a man sent off, and we scored the penalty. And then it was only a couple of minutes later that I scored. So from 2-1 up at half time, but still feeling a bit nervous. I think it was 52, 53 minutes. We were then 4-1 up against 10 men, and definitely started thinking about my night out plans and how drunk I was going to get over the next couple of days.
There was always obviously a lot of good players on that side, the likes of Rudy Scatchell, who's kind of club hero and everything else. Marisa Lucas, who's unfortunately no longer with us. Mary Towell, kind of maybe a wee bit underrated, maybe didn't quite get the credit deserved at Hearts, but it was a really good squad, wasn't it?
Yeah, and again, personally, I had Andy Webster, who was next to me at that time, who had a wonderful career and was a real help to me. He was kind of my right centre back, and I was right back for the majority of that season, and he was one that really helped me. Again, learning the tricks of the trade and making sure I was in the right position and how important the little things are in terms of defending and and again, making the right decisions, whether to put the ball into the channel or to play it into feet, just, talking me through the game. But probably most of the time he was shouting at me through the game. It was a bit of a pain in the ass for most of it. But looking back, it was really helpful for my development. And like you said, we did have a core group that was really good, really hardworking, and it was a difficult season with not getting paid and everything that went on with that. So it did bring us together, and it was a special way to end that season for sure.
Obviously, you mentioned a few names there. Who was the best player in the group for you?
Probably Rudy, I think. David Templeton definitely on his day was someone that was undefendable. Could score goals with his right or left foot and was very dangerous. Stephen Elliott was very underrated in the team as well. But probably Rudy Scatchell was the one that you knew if he was on the pitch, as lazy as he was, and had to do all his running for him, he could win you the game with a couple of his strikes. So he's probably one that was just that little bit above everybody else.
Yeah. Another change of culture.
Yep.
Apologies for the pronunciation or potential pronunciation, but I'm going to go for it. Shandong Luneng Taishan.
That's very good, yeah.
That's what I'm going for. You've headed for China. What's the motivation behind that?
It was a tricky one at that stage. So Hearts had gone into their sort of financial troubles at that time, and the Rangers bid that was in the August.
Was that the dual bid? Was it you and
me and Temps?
Temps?
Yeah, so I didn't really go because they wanted to pay more for Temps than me, and I didn't agree with that. So that was one.
But is that generally what that was it?
No. I just couldn't believe that they thought he was
the
double
Temps
the
would
player
give
that
you
I
more.
was. But yeah, that was just, it was one at the time. I'd just broken into the national team.
Didn't want to go and potentially sit on the bench? Or did you back yourself as... That's quite a tricky question.
Yeah, it was a tricky one. Rangers were in the 3rd division, and I was at Hearts at the time in the Premier League, just broken into the national team, and we're about 18 months away from a World Cup. So I was thinking if I go to Rangers financially at that time, it would be wonderful for me. Big club, I would be very well looked after, set up for life. But I also had that fear that, I would kind of be one of those players that would progress them back into the Premier League. Then they would have all this money and I would kind of be binned off. Yeah. And then I would have missed the World Cup. I probably wouldn't have then got back into the national team. So try to look a little bit long-term future.
Wider scale and stuff.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do and try to play at sort of a decent enough level. That then changed because, I thought I was going to get a warm welcome when I came back and had turned Rangers down, and I basically got told that I'd be going to the highest bidder in January, because at that time I was one of the sort of more valuable assets of the club. So then it was just a case of I'd be going to the highest bidder, and it was kind of told to my agent to go and try and find the highest bidder, and a little bit of disappointment, I guess, from Hearts, because I did want to probably stay there for a couple more years. I felt that would have been my best place for me to progress and learn and become a better player. But also growing up in Adelaide, I always wanted to play for Shandong, so I was pretty happy when they came in the January. But I was basically sold in right at the start of January. I didn't even play the last couple of games in December because they were worried I was going to get injured. Yeah, so that was all kind of sewn up before January, and January the 1st, I left for China.
What was the standard like over there?
It was actually quite good at the time. It is very hard to explain, but I think the best way that I've learned to explain it was, we'd play against, I'm trying to think, Jackson Martinez and Oscar and Hulk were all in the same team.
Yeah.
So if you put those three in St. Johnson or a Motherwell team, they all of a sudden become, a pretty dangerous team. And that was probably the case in China. It was at that time when I was there, all the teams had sort of one big dog, or at least two sort of big players that were world-class superstars in their team. So as a defender, it was pretty good to come up against some big names that I'd been watching play across some of the biggest clubs in Europe. And Shandong is probably second or third biggest club in China. So it was, I was well looked after in terms of everything that you need off the pitch, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
You obviously like long flights. It's obviously something that you do enjoy because then you fly back and sing for Dundee United.
Yeah, so spent 2 years in China, and then I was just kind of not over it a little bit, but China is a difficult place. I found it a difficult place to live, just because you are away from a lot of your sort of home comforts, and Edinburgh at the time had a massive appeal to me, and was out of contract, and Jackie McNamara gave me a buzz and said, "Would you like to join Dundee United?" And
was that on the back of just knowing Jackie from previous? Or?
Yeah, probably from the Thistle. Kind of had a connection. Used to drive through with him. He lived in Edinburgh, so we were sort of in a car school when I was at Thistle. I was only there for a couple of months, but got on really well with him. And then he had obviously got the Dundee United job, and like that, they were kind of looking for a defender right back at the time. And it was one that I kind of jumped at because, when I joined, they're in a semi-final of the League Cup. I think we're in the top 2 or 3 at that stage in the league, and we're a big club, so I was delighted to join them and join up with Jackie again, and had a up and down sort of calendar year at Dundee United, but one that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Did you think, see when you kind of flew back, do you think in that sort of moment, that'll be me, I'm going to try and settle a wee bit now, maybe Scotland is the place for me to just kind of stay and develop and everything else, or did you always have that kind of mindset of that I'm open to try anything?
No, definitely at that time, I was just kind of wanting to get a little bit of stability. China was very different. I felt like I was quite happy at heart, and like I said earlier, wanted to stay for a little bit longer, and thought that was my best sort of opportunity to progress. Was only there for 2 years. There was a lot of change of managers and different things that went on in China, so I just wanted to kind of come back and settle down and establish. I just had my son, Harry, and just wanted to kind of be at ease. Well, yeah, it was wanting to be at ease. Harry wasn't just born yet. He was on his way as such. So I was quite happy to be content. But then January came around again, and another Chinese club. Yeah, I remember, I think we played Celtic at Tannadice, and we got beat. And then someone came in and said, the chairman wants to see you. This is how sometimes football works. And I was thinking, why does the chairman want to see me after the game? It was a little bit odd, and went into his office, and he said that they've just received a bid from a Chinese club if I had heard about it. I hadn't heard a single thing about it. So it was...
What's your thought at that time? See, when he says we've received a bid from a Chinese club, does your heart kind of drop almost? Do you know where that conversation's kind of going?
Yeah, you kind of know when the chairman's telling you that they're pretty happy with what they've offered. But it was more of a case that I hadn't heard of it. Normally, you kind of get wind of it
through an agent.
Through an agent or something beforehand. So, it was initially. I think it was they had emailed the club to say that we are interested in signing Ryan. I had a good spell in China at Shandong. We won the cup and finished first and second. So I did quite well when I was there. And I was a little bit surprised that there was a Chinese club, but I think Dundee United said, well, you can have them for a certain figure. And
that was that.
I got an email back saying, we'll match that. And I was packing my PlayStation in my bag and heading back to China.
On that Dundee United dressing room, just quickly, we'll go back to China a wee second. You walk in, there's Nadir Chifchi, Gary Mackay-Steven and Stuart Armstrong.
Mm-hmm. It was our front three, yeah.
Yeah.
For a couple of weeks, and then 2 of them left. So, it was one of those tricky ones. That was probably, looking back in hindsight, that was probably not the beginning of the end, but that really disrupted that end of the season. I think we still finished maybe 4th or 5th, but we got beaten in the cup final against Celtic, and we kind of tailed off a little bit. And I think also the fans got very disgruntled at the selling of them, and it just became a little bit of a bad place to be around. But then the start of the following season was it was confident that we would do well, but just never kind of worked out. And it was, I think when I left, we were maybe 2nd or 3rd bottom at the time, and they eventually got relegated in, I think, that season. So I was disappointed. I was kind of on-field captain as such. Sean Dillon was in and out of the team. He was club captain, but he was kind of not favoured at that time. So I was a captain and wanted to stay there and do well. And I felt that we had players that were capable enough of definitely making the top 6. But just the way that football works is instead of hanging in there and seeing if we could get out of trouble, I was back off to China.
Back off. Talked of that front three of Chifty, Mackay, Stephen, and Stuart Armstrong. That Chinese kind of football boom was on the high at that stage. I think you already touched on the likes of Oscar. On goal in your debut against Shanghai, that front three was Oscar, Asamoah Gyan and Hulk.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts going into something like that? Does that kind of struck you a wee bit? Is that a thing?
No, not really. No, not really.
It's just like a good opportunity coming from European football almost.
Yeah, you're just trying to work out early doors if they were bothered or if they were really keen for it. It used to sometimes depend on their win bonuses, I think, of if they were going to try that night or if they were just a little bit.
Oscar lasted a while, to be fair, didn't he?
He was there for 6 or 7 years, I think. Yeah. So they were on crazy amounts of money over there, and they were superstars. At the time, I think. Jack's, what was his name? The boy that was at Chelsea. He left Chelsea to go to Shanghai, Ramirez.
Yeah.
There were players that were leaving Premier League clubs or big clubs in Europe.
Scored in the semi-final at the Nou Camp.
Yeah, and then 6 months later he's playing against me in the Chinese Super League. You have to wonder about his life choices. But
money-driven potentially?
I have a feeling it might have been a little bit of that. But like I said, it was good for a defender. You're playing against week in, week out, pretty high caliber strikers and ones that were still in their sort of prime and could deliver at any moment. So it was good as a defender to sort of test yourself against those types of players.
Osman Sow was in that dressing room as well.
Yeah.
Had he been at Hearts at that stage, or was that a Hearts connection there yet?
There wasn't a connection as such, but I do remember Robbie Nielsen reaching out to say that my club had put in an offer for Osman, and then I got Osman's number to sort of give him the ins and outs of what the sort of Chinese league was like, and it was good that when he came over, we all lived in the same sort of apartment building, and get on really well with Osman. So it was good to sort of have a friendly face or a familiar face across there, and one that I enjoyed.
You had another kind of loan move over there for kind of 6 months. Then you've headed for the United Arab Emirates from there. My question is, was that money driven, or is that ever kind of crossed your mind of that kind of boom period? You maybe see people making huge wages, and I think you said earlier, kind of life changing money essentially.
Yeah, so people often say that. So the first 2 Chinese moves I was bought basically. So it was
forced to go.
Yeah, not forced to go, but I could have said no, but. Yeah, the financial reward was a little bit better than what Hearts were offering and Dundee were offering at the time. But so those 2 kind of decisions were, most of the time it was taken out of my hands. The Sharjah one was again, they kind of came to a, not gentleman's agreement, but I think we had a change of manager in China, and because there's only 4 foreigners, 3 of us were kind of shipped out. So I was shipped out, and they were looking to try and do well in the sort of Asian Champions League, and seeing that I'd become available, and there's worse places to go and play football than
absolutely
in the UAE. So I was only there for I think 6 months as well.
Yeah. How difficult has it been one of those foreigners? Like, I had a quick look through that squad when you were there at Sharjah, and there's a few Brazilians, one from Uzbekistan, and yourself.
Yeah.
Essentially, how difficult is that?
The proper odd one out. I was everywhere I've gone, I've probably been the odd one out.
How is your salsa dancing these days?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It depends who you ask. But after a couple of beers, I'm not too bad on the old salsa. But it was. It's difficult. But most of those clubs, because there's only 4 or 5 foreigners, you are well looked after. Always kind of, especially at Shandong, I had a driver and an interpreter. Who basically were at my beck and call 24 hours a day. So same as all of my Chinese clubs, everyone had their own driver. And then we had our own sort of, I think the couple of clubs, Osman, we shared the interpreter, but the couple of Brazilians, they would have their own interpreter, and meant that team meetings were quite long because it was getting mixed and matched everywhere. But they do obviously look out for you a bit more because you are a foreigner there, and you're trying to adapt as much as you can. But the
What's the kind of general lifestyle like that? So you finish training, what does your afternoon look like?
In China or in
Both?
Both. In China I was young, so it was a lot of PlayStation. I didn't have any commitments, no kids. So it was a lot of, I wish I did a bit more in my time, but it was a lot of PlayStation and going out and enjoying myself. And then Dubai was a bit better, obviously, because it is a bit more westernized. In China, I wasn't in one of the major cities. I wasn't in Shanghai or Beijing or Guangzhou. I was kind of a little bit out of those types of cities, so it was a little bit more difficult for sort of a Westerner to get about and do things in the afternoons or in the evenings. But Dubai there's a lot of stuff to do in Dubai, and it's probably why I was only there for 6 months.
You do leave Dubai, again, another kind of culture change as you head for Bradford City.
Yeah, that was, a lot of people ask me that one, and even looking at that piece of paper, I do wonder why I left. But yeah, again, it was kind of taken out of my control. We had a change of manager at Sharjah. 3 of us foreigners were basically told that we were, we're not going to play. They needed to bring in their own sort of types of foreigners. So you come to an agreement and leave. And Stuart McCall was at Bradford at the time. They just missed out in the playoffs, and he wanted me to go there in the January. And because of the sort of Chinese league and the Arab sort of world, their calendar years, their football season. So a lot of the times when I was finishing or coming out of contract was in January. And as you know, January is a very difficult kind of market to do. So I think the appeal for me was that I was a free agent in January, which meant that a lot of clubs didn't have to agree, loan fees or sort of work out that type of thing. And I was obviously fit because I just finished the end of season. So went to Bradford hoping that we would obviously do well, and played my first game under Stuart McCall, and we got beat, and he got sacked a couple of hours later. So it was
it David Hopkin after that?
It was a couple of we had an intern manager, and then we had Simon Grayson. Right. And then I got injured in my third game for Bradford, so I done my knee. So then I was out for 6 months, and when I did kind of get back fit, David Hopkin was in charge, and kind of sort of, it was probably around September, October that I'd got fit from my knee injury and came back and played a couple of months under him.
Had a quick look through the squad as well in terms of just kind of general characters and whatnot and kind of personalities. The one I've written down is Jim O'Brien.
Yeah.
Just from watching podcasts and things like that. Good footballer. Like, I've watched him at another club in Scotland quite regularly, but I think he's perceived to be quite a big character within the dressing room.
Yes, a very big character. First away trip he came with his guitar on the back of the bus and was just singing songs at the back of the bus. So he's definitely not shy and a big Jim, but he was a good character to have, and it was a good time down at Bradford.
See, in terms of those characters, do you often think that it maybe negatively impacts them, and maybe because he's obviously a very good footballer, but do you think that maybe character side maybe takes over that ever so slightly, and you get that perception rather than the perception that he is actually a good player?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of fans sometimes they say, the characters are out the game and you don't have the characters like they used to, but then they're so quick to shoot people down. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be a better role model, or you should be living his life better off the pitch, or especially now with Twitter and Instagram and everyone having iPhones. As soon as you do something,
somebody knows.
It can be online pretty quickly, and you can be in a little bit of trouble. Whereas back in the day, even when I was back in the day, but when I was playing, everyone had flip phones and
Motorola Razr.
It wasn't BBM. There wasn't that kind of Twitter, or that was big. So it's just up with the times now, I guess. That you have to be a little bit more switched on. But I'm kind of glad that I caught the tail end of a few nights out not being videoed.
Sydney FC. Yeah. I'm probably going to ask you the same question I asked you a minute ago. Did you think that was the end of your travels? You've obviously kind of went back to Australia now, and you're... No,
because I had my oldest son was here, right. And he was not with his mum, so I was always going to come back for him. It was just at that stage that was my best option. Really, I'd kind of, from Bradford, I'd come up to Dundee for a couple of months for a few personal reasons, and then just thought Sydney was a good one for me. They offered me a good deal at the time when I didn't really have that many options. I felt like I was still at a reasonably good age, and the A-League was good, so I kind of had that dream of maybe possibly getting back into the national team and just going and enjoying my football, really. Like you said, at that sort of 18 months, I'd probably had 3 clubs. I'd come back from a knee injury. I felt the A-League, they only play 26 games plus finals, would have kind of helped my career in terms of
longevity and things like that.
Yeah, just being able to play games semi-regularly, being at a proper professional setup. They only have a squad of 23, so they have to kind of run things really well, because if you do have a major injury, then you can't really sign anyone. It's a salary cap league. So, and just wanted to get back and play and enjoy my football, be close to my mum. My mum's from Adelaide and still live there. So it was a good opportunity for me to be quite close to her. And just at that time, it ticked a lot of boxes, and it was quite successful in Sydney.
I actually did have it written down, crossing the Dundee Divide. I've moved on slightly swiftly.
Yes, I did do that.
How did that feel? Did you get any sort of abuse or anything along those lines, or was it just a case of...
It was kind of fine. I think it went under the radar, really, to be honest. Again, it was Hopkin was a manager, I think, at Bradford, and he had come to me to say Jim McIntyre had inquired if I wanted to go up to Scotland and play for Dundee, and like I said, there was a few things going on at that time, and ticked a few boxes, and just thought, might as well go up for a few months. I'd kind of been in and out the team at Bradford, so I thought if I can get a bit of a run and play at Dundee and see how I got on there, and I was coming out of contract as well, so I wanted to be playing. I didn't want to be at Bradford and kind of getting 20 minutes there, 30 minutes there. So I thought if I can go and play, I think it was maybe 14 or 15 games, put myself a little bit in the shop window, and ended up working out well, because that was one of the things that Sydney looked at in terms of you have played a lot of 90 minutes recently, whereas if I'd maybe stayed at Bradford and played the odd 90 minutes here and there, it doesn't sometimes reflect too well on you.
You said Edinburgh had a little bit of a hold on you. Did you live kind of down here, or did you just stay up in Dundee and kind of easier?
Always just stayed in Edinburgh and just travelled.
Did you have a car school on that as well, or was it just you?
Jack Hamilton for a bit, actually.
Right.
Yeah, but he doesn't stop talking, so it was a nuisance in the morning. It's just I'm a bit of a quieter character and like to take my time in the mornings, and he would be full of energy and
buzz bomb.
Oh, just buzzing in my ear. So I used to have to try and get him to sleep, or just try and tell him to shut up.
Heating up as high as you could.
Just leave me alone for the morning, Jack. But so it wasn't too bad. Dundee enjoyed it, and then Sydney was really good. I really enjoyed those it was 18 months, and then kind of COVID hit, which wasn't great.
Yeah. Sydney to Kuwait.
Yeah,
is next. Just about the end of your career.
We're getting there. Not to forget.
You'd obviously kind of moved around at that sort of stage. Had you found it difficult to settle, or was it just kind of circumstances went right?
Again, so originally signed Sydney for a 2-year deal. Was pretty happy with that. COVID had kind of come and hit. I just had my daughter Millie. They were kind of in and out of we have to do quarantine, and I think I spent one of the years when I was in Sydney, it was about 6 weeks in quarantine altogether. So which isn't ideal. And then Kuwait kind of came up, and that was a lot closer to Edinburgh, where I was kind of based. I have always really been based in Edinburgh as such. So it was close. I just got back into the national team, and we played against Kuwait. That's how that came about. And the chairman of Kuwait was there, and they were looking for an Asian centre-back to join their team. So that's how that all came out about Kuwait, and I signed with Big John Obi Mikel. So me and him signed on the same day for Kuwait, and I was there for a year and really enjoyed it. Beautiful place.
Did you get the press release that you deserved? So again, I've watched other podcasts. Was it the famous ones? I think it's Paul Slane with Robbie Keane, that Paul Slane was just shafted to the side and Robbie Keane's got the scarf up above his head.
Oh yeah.
Or was it all attention on John Obi Mikel?
It wasn't too bad. They did all of the foreigners at the same time. But yeah, he probably got a few more questions than I did. But yeah, it was good. You know, they were the biggest club in Kuwait, and they wanted to sort of do really well in the Asian Champions League. There's a lot of money in that, and yeah, the family is obviously very wealthy. The ones that own Kuwait, I think they've just bought. They've just bought MK Dons. I think they did in the summer. So yeah, they're passionate footballing fans and wanted to sort of get Kuwait SC onto their sort of charts in especially the sort of golf world, and yeah, they really wanted to do well in the Golf Cup and things like that. So yeah, it was a good time to be a Kuwait player, and we had a really successful season. I think we won 4 out of 5 trophies that were up for grabs, and had a really good team.
Back to Scotland again.
Yep.
St Johnstone.
St Johnstone.
Finished 9th in the first season. Was that kind of seen as success at that sort of stage? Or?
Yes and no. I think when I originally signed, it was kind of top 6 under Callum Davidson. I felt like we had a pretty good squad to compete with them, and we went through a really good spell. It was probably around sort of September, October, November. I think we went 7 or 8 games unbeaten. We beat Rangers, scored a late equaliser, I think, against St Mirren. We were just on a bit of a good run, beat Hibs at Easter Road. You know, so we were doing well, and then we just kind of tailed off, I think, coming around sort of January, February, March, and then we're chasing our tail a little bit come the end of the season. And yeah, it was probably a difficult one. I got a bad injury, and I think it was in the end of January, which wasn't great personally, but yeah, you know, still played 30 odd games in that first season and really enjoyed it. It's a wonderful club. Yeah, a lot of good people working behind the scenes, and yeah, I was really happy there, and actually quite disappointed when Callum left.
A lot of good players as well, to be fair. The likes of kind of Chris Kane, David Witherspoon, Graham Carey, Murray Davidson's,
Stevie May.
I was just about to go Stevie May. That was going to be the link.
You would have been devastated if I didn't mention him.
Stevie May. But what?
Dre Wright, Liam Gordon.
Yeah,
it was we had
really good squad.
Yeah, we had Adam Montgomery was with us as well, who was at Celtic.
I was going to go Theo Bair.
Theo Bair, yeah.
That's going to be my question, because obviously he didn't appear to do much at St Johnstone. Got that move to Motherwell, tore it up, and now look at him now.
He's playing in France, yeah. So yeah, he was a bit of a funny one. He just wasn't given really the opportunity as such.
Is that because of the likes of Stevie May, Chris Kane's, people like that? And
yeah, Nicky Clark. You know, it was kind of Nicky Clark and Stevie May in that first season were our front two. We had Dre Wright on the right hand side, Graham Carey on the left. It was like me, Liam Gordon, Andy Constant. We kind of had a real settled lineup, and Theo just struggled to sort of get in. And I think with his appearance and his size and his height, you know, he was maybe coming on the last 10, 15 minutes of games, and we were, you know, lumping the ball forward to him, and he wasn't great in the air for his size. So I think a lot of people used to think, you know, that why is he not, you know, holding the ball up or winning flick-ons? But I think when you see him when he went to Motherwell, it was more, you know, the runs in behind. He was very quick, could use his body well, and I think at that time, again, it was just one of those things he probably had to get out of St Johnstone because of that limited time and go and play. And yeah, fair play to him. He did really well. I don't think many people seen that coming, that, you know, the season that he had, and he's got those rewards from it, and it's fully part of the Canadian national team as well. So yeah, really happy for him.
I think it was a wee bit of a surprise. He scored a couple of decent goals against Livingston kind of last year in the Prem. I think took a bit of a sore one at Fir Park, and he was instrumental to that. But without sounding disrespectful, you almost didn't consider him as a threat just because of previous knowledge of, you said he's maybe not won flick-ons, or he's maybe not holding it up, and that's what you think he's got. But when he's providing that level of performance for his team, it's like, this guy can play.
Yeah. And, you know, I think fans and pundits and, you know, people outside the club forget they are humans as well. You know, being a little bit of TLC or a little bit of a cuddle after a game, it can go a long way, and for certain people. And I think that's what. I'm not saying that Theo didn't get that at St Johnstone. I just felt that, you know, that change of scenery and maybe him going somewhere different and not being a sort of bit part player, you probably would have been signed with, you know, Kettlewell signed at Motherwell, probably saying you're going to be our proper number 9. You know, you're going to play a lot of minutes. You're going to start the season for me. Probably gave him that confidence that he wouldn't have got at St Johnstone, not because he wasn't a good player, but just because of that. At that time, we had, like I said, Chris Kane, Nicky Clark, Stevie May. We had sort of better options as such at that time, and he just had to get out and play football and show what he can do, and fair play to him for doing that.
I know the likes of Nicky Clark is maybe not the biggest person in the world, but he's got a wonderful jump and things like that, and he's very good in the air, and his hold-up plays decent, and he's a good goal scorer as well, but maybe kind of throttles him a wee bit. But you did touch on Callum Davidson there. Kind of sad to see him go. Was it at Livingston he got sacked? Was it in and about that? I
think his last game, possibly would have been. I think we got beat at Livingston.
Livingston edged it, because I remember kind of waiting for Davey kind of post-match on the park, and there was Gus McPherson, Stephen McLean, Liam Craig potentially, all in the dugout, and I was like, something's going to change there.
I think it was after that game, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that game was kind of one that if we won, we would have been closer to Livy than sort of the bottom couple of teams, and we obviously got beaten, maybe got pulled back into that race with when we were trying to look forward, and I think it was after that Livingston at our ground, that he got the sack. So it was disappointing. You never want to see a manager sacked, especially myself when I was playing and playing every week. So pretty disappointed for him. But
how was he? So I think everybody kind of knows I follow another team in Scotland, and he came into coaching staff for a while. It seems dry at times, maybe in terms of his kind of interviews and things like that. How was he actually kind of day to day?
I couldn't speak highly enough of him. I had a really good relationship with him. I feel like he's a really good manager. He was. I think any player that's probably worked with him wouldn't say a bad word about him. Maybe Theo might, but there wouldn't be many. I think he was very fair. He was very demanding in certain things, but he knew where the line was and never kind of crossed that. He was never overly friendly, but he was always one that the door would be open, and he liked his golf days. And
how good is he at golf?
Oh, I think he's off +4 maybe.
Struggling then.
Yeah, so he plays a different type of golf to what I play.
Me too.
You might say. So but he was just a really good manager, and I think you see that with his some of the performances that he's put on, winning the double with St Johnson, who's probably never be done again, and then even his result last week at Queen's Park, he always knew how to set up teams, and he was always especially in that first season, we were always. I think we maybe got beat 3 or 4-0 once off. I think it was maybe Celtic, but the rest of the games were always kind of in it, and I felt like that's kind of half the battle. I think is you fans, if they can see that almost every game that you're playing, whether that be against this kind of bigger clubs in Scotland, if you're always within a fighting chance of 1 or 2 goals in it, then I think that's what he tried to achieve with us. And I think in that summer, or if he did get to the summer, I have no questions that he probably would have improved the squad, but. I think at the same time, St Johnson at that moment were kind of looking to cut things back a bit, and that's kind of how it went.
Obviously, as you said, that he's kind of had a very, very good result at the weekend at Ibrox, which is probably unseen. Nobody kind of seen it coming, but even kind of post-match interview and things like that, it's like you're going to watch the draw, he's like, nah, I'm just going to play squash.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, after a massive result like that.
Yeah, he is like one of those ones that, he does take that pressure off you, I guess, as a player. He would kind of say, he'd be under no illusions. He wouldn't be feeding you anything that wasn't true. I remember the Rangers one that we won. He used to just say, just try and first go through the game, first 15 minutes, keep a clean sheet, and then get to half an hour, then get to half time. Then we'll try and nick one. I think we scored late in the first half. It's like they're going to come out the traps. You need to make sure you don't concede. Even if you do concede, a draw is not the worst result. He was just very straight shooter, and it kind of took that pressure off you of doing that. And I'm sure that was kind of the game plan at the weekend, was to try and frustrate Rangers and be really resolute and hard to beat. And I'm delighted for him that they won, and Rangers got knocked out, and it gives us a pretty good opportunity to try and do something this season.
Absolutely. That is the whistle-stop tour of your club career done for now.
It's wild, isn't it?
We've obviously got Livingston to talk about, but I want to touch on Australia first.
Right, okay.
How honoured do you feel just to kind of represent at that sort of level?
Yeah, I think when you asked at the start, did you want to be a professional? I think straight away you wanted to play for Australia. That's what you wanted to do. I think all sort of kids around here would want to play for Scotland. You you don't particularly have one club that you want to, well, Real Madrid and Barcelona, those types of places that you...
Tottenham, weren't you?
Yeah, you quickly realise that you're miles away from that. But to have the opportunity to play for Australia is huge, and something that, there was a lot of times when I was at Hearts, like I said, when I was struggling to get into the first team, or, missing out on squads or getting 5-10 minutes here, that you start thinking, is it worth it? And, what am I actually going to be doing with my career as a 19, 20-year-old, and to start playing for Australia and get called up and playing it, especially back in Australia in front of friends and family is pretty special. And they're probably the moments that, when I do sort of hang the boots up, will be the ones that I'm most proud of.
I think you were cap number 546 off the top of my head. I don't know if that means anything to you or not to you. But I think your first one came against Scotland. Is that right?
Yeah, it was on my birthday at Easter Road. So it was...
a venue you love.
Yeah.
And are loved in.
Yeah. Got a lot of Hibs fans that watch. So
is that quite nice though, because of the kind of connection you have to Scotland?
Yeah, it was literally perfect for me. I couldn't have picked a better game. I remember hearing whispers. Yeah, I remember hearing whispers that we were going to play Scotland in a friendly, and I hadn't been capped. So I was thinking, geez, if I don't get capped now, then there's no chance, because I'm literally 10 minutes away from the stadium. But that was kind of after the cup final. The cup final was in May. This was sort of the next international window, and then it was announced that it was at Easter Road. So I was like, this is going to be good. But I was first and foremost, I was just delighted to be called in the squad. It was just a 1-game window, so normally they have 2 games. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get an opportunity or a chance to play. But it was just a really special moment. My mum was over from Australia at the time, so she got to come to the game, and had a lot of friends and family, and then a lot of people at Hearts that helped me through, from when I was 17 and joined, and off the plane that took me in and really looked after me and made sure that all of those people that were at the club that meant something to me were at the game. So it was extra special to for my first game to be there on my birthday. It was 22 maybe.
Be about right.
Yeah, be about right. Yeah, to make my debut for Australia at 22 against Scotland, which I have a lot of connections with in Edinburgh. It was really a wonderful moment.
Who was the best player in the squad at that sort of time? Is there anybody you looked up to in particular?
I think there was still kind of the generation that I grew up watching. Like Lucas Neal, Mark Bresciano, Harry Kewell wasn't in it, who was my hero growing up, and Mark Viduka, they weren't in it. But yeah, a lot of those players that I'd watched, play in the World Cups and do so well and kind of be the trailblazers for Aussies over in the UK were still in and around the squad. So yeah, it was wonderful for me to have that opportunity to play and train, and kind of stayed in the squad for the next, well, basically all the way up to the World Cup, which was pretty good.
Yeah. Ange Postecoglou, you obviously picked him over Davey at the start of the
Yeah. I was going to be raging it.
Yes. I'm sure he'll watch and subscribe and like it as well. So Davey, what those buttons are. How was he? How intense was he? How amazing was he?
He's probably all of those things. Like I said, I had the experience of training with him and being a player under him when I was 17, 18.
Did he have that style then as well?
Yeah, he still had that style, and that was his kind of method. And then it was different to sort of have that probably 6 or 7 years later and work with him under sort of national team level was just really good. And he just made you feel such a good player, and he just made you so comfortable and confident in this, the way that he wants to play. Felt like you were going to beat anyone, and that's a pretty hard task to sell when you're Australia against some of the best countries in the world. But I think all of us went out onto the pitch knowing that if we did play the style that he wanted to play and at the tempo and everything, and he wasn't asking you to do anything crazy. He wasn't asking you to, especially me as a right back, he wasn't telling me to do anything that I couldn't do in terms of, go beat 4 players and whip crosses in or do anything like that. It was just kept everything very simple until the sort of final third, which I never got up to. So I didn't really have to do anything.
Were you inverting at that stage as a fullback? Were you dropping into that kind of 6 role?
No, I don't know if it was because of my ability as a player that he didn't invert, but no, that wasn't a thing just yet. So I was just an out and out right back that was, I was the kind of decoy runner for the wingers, and just used to just say, try and get forward and overlap. And as I was doing the overlap, I was just praying they wouldn't pass me the ball. It was just a proper decoy. Just to take someone away from the winger. So, but yeah, loved working under him, and he was super intense. So I'm not sure how I'd get on if that was a week to week type thing. But yeah, you're only in camp for 2 weeks. But it was pretty good.
Was he miles ahead of his time, do you think, in terms of that sort of style that he wanted to play? Because it hadn't really been out there at that time. I know Pep was doing bits with Barcelona and things, but...
Yeah, well, he was kind of doing it at Brisbane Roar, which was one of his first kind of clubs that he was really successful at. He was doing that in Australia, and I think the question always was would he be able to do it at a higher level? And he then went to Melbourne Victory, which was a bit of a bigger club, and that seemed to work. Then he got into the national team, and we probably didn't do it as well as he had wanted to. But it was also difficult because, like I said, we were only in camps. Sometimes at the first game, we had boys flying in from everywhere. You're maybe only going to get 2 training sessions before a first game. So it was sometimes really hard for him to implement that on the training pitch. But he then went to Japan and did it there, where I thought he possibly would struggle with the language barrier. Because that is probably one of his biggest strengths is his communication and being able to explain everything in his training. So I did wonder if he would struggle with that sort of language barrier, but he did extremely well there and got his move to Celtic, and the rest is history.
As he did get that job over here, a bit of an unknown. I think Eddie Howe looked like he was going to kind of be the favourite. Possibly Cogley comes in, everybody's kind of, how's this going to go? A bit of a risk, but as you said, the rest is history. Probably on that recruitment as well, he's brought players in from Asia, the likes of Hatate, Maeda, Kyoko, people like that who have made huge strides at Celtic.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, it's a question I always get asked, is the standard of football in China and in Japan and these different places, and it's the same as when I go back to Australia. They ask what's the standard like here, and it is so hard to judge because sometimes you're only sampling certain players and how those individuals are going. You look at Kyogo, who was one of the best strikers in a long time in Scotland, and he can't actually get into the national team for Japan. So that kind of blows people's mind over here because of what a good player he is. And even when he was in Japan, he was successful and he was good, but I wouldn't say that he was out and out the best player over 5-6 years. I think he was maybe at the end just before Celtic signed him. But I think with Ange and the players that he brings in, because he doesn't change the style of play he plays, he basically knows that if you tick a lot of boxes that he wants from a player to bring him into that team,
they'll adapt into that
again. He's not going to ask you anything that he's wanting to do. Maeda's obviously doing really well just now, but he's always had the sort of high sprint distancing from when he was in Japan. So Ange knew that the way that he wanted to press and do that the Dyson would be able to do that and be able to cope with those pressures. So he is quite clever in terms of the players that he wants to bring in at club level, but he's probably got all fingers crossed he can survive at Spurs and get another window to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's having a bit of a difficult time there at the moment.
Struggling, isn't he?
He is. Spoke to one of the media team young Blair, who sometimes comes on, our videographer, arguably one of the best World Cup goals ever, assisted by our own very own Ryan McGowan, 2014. It's described as some launch up to Cahill.
Some launch, did he? I'll pull him up on that. It's called a long pass in Australia. It's called vision.
How did that moment feel?
Yeah, it's probably, again, hindsight. At the time, you don't really think about it. You just focused on trying to get in the game, and we'd just conceded. And again, I just remember Ange had a real thing about kickoffs is to attack, whether that would be the first kickoff or at halftime or after you conceded. You'd come up with this statistic, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but that was probably the best opportunity for you to score was after the team has just scored. Because it's human nature, you switch off or you've been celebrating. So I remember it was just from kickoff and it kind of came out I was running forward, came out to me, and I was just thinking I need to put this forward. And Cahill always makes a sort of run to the back post, and I just try to put it a bit in an area, and I like to think that he couldn't really miss from there, but he made the pass a little bit better. But it wasn't probably until after the game and you realise that was probably the greatest ever goal that Australia scored at a World Cup, and that you've played a very small part, although I like to sometimes.
Just by launching it.
If I had a couple of drinks, it becomes a lot better. And I think my kids think that Timmy just tapped it in from a couple of centimetres. So when they get a bit older and they watch it, they will maybe understand. But yeah, it's something that like to wind a few of the boys up that, had 2 starts and 1 assist at a World Cup, which isn't too bad.
Not too bad at all. Were you frustrated not to get more caps?
No. I was always
would one have been enough?
Yeah, one would probably, I think a few Australia fans probably think there's 20 too many, but I think I've got 22.
I've got 22.
22. Yeah, it's again, getting to the end of my career. When I look back, it's not bad going. Like I said, for a lanky kid from Adelaide to end up getting 22 caps for Australia, it's pretty good. And like I said, when I retire and look back, they'll probably be the sort of proudest moments. I've played against some pretty big nations and pretty big moments. So it would be good to have a glass of wine and sit back and watch a couple of highlights.
Superb. Let's get on to the good stuff, on the Livingston stuff now. We do have the other
lines.
5.
Oh yeah, okay.
Part of this. So
Right, here we go.
Future manager in the dressing room.
Oh, you'd be struggling. You would really be struggling. Andrew Shinnie, probably. I know he's doing a bit of work with the Rezzies just now, so he's probably the only sensible one. But apart from that, you're really struggling.
Dressing room DJ. There's a few very, very questionable tunes coming out of that dressing room.
Yeah?
I'm having a wee bit, but
I don't mind the chip. I think Shinnie there was a bit of, at the start of the season, I can't remember who it was, we were trying to find one, but I think Shinnie just has the balance right. I think a few boys have got in his ear, so that there's a good kind of balance and mix, pre-game and post-game.
Funniest
would be Reece Merkley is quite funny. I like him. He's got a good sense of humour. Stevie May goes under the radar. Robbie Muirhead's always up to something. Probably between those 3. But definitely not Robbie, but he's always up to something.
Most intelligent?
Oh, again, you're really struggling.
Putting yourself up there?
No, probably not. But I'd probably be one of the more sensible ones, which is saying something. Most intelligent. I want to maybe say Dan, but I don't know why I would say that, because I don't think he is. But I just think he probably comes across as the most intelligent, unless I'm missing someone. Maybe Shins again,
maybe.
One of the older ones.
I've got 2 more, to be fair. Best and worst dress sense.
Worst, Smithy really struggles, but he's delighted with what he wears.
Right, okay.
So you can't really question it, because thinks he looks really good, but he actually doesn't. Who else? Best dressed. I feel like I keep saying Shinnie makes a real effort. Yeah, he pretends that he doesn't, but he makes a real effort into what he wears. Although Dan sometimes can do all right. There's a few boys you can tell when the boys come in if they've got something on after training, because they're dressed differently. But Notts is not bad sometimes. Chrissy's not great. Pitts just wears the same things. Stephen Kelly sometimes.
Right, okay.
Sometimes he has a little bit of a date after training. So sometimes he's dressed to impress. Reece loves a hat, which is weird.
Yeah.
Don't know why. It's freezing cold and he wears a hat. But he probably thinks he's one of the best dressed. But he's not too bad, but he's not as good as he thinks.
Final one is more just a kind of general one, to be fair. Best player you've ever played with and against? I know that's quite a big question.
Yeah, with probably going to go big, maybe Cahill just for his moments.
Yeah.
Like national team scoring goals in big moments and competitions. He'd be up there with Tommy Rogic was pretty good. Aaron Moy, some of those Aussie players that played with Wagner Love. Remember him in Brazil?
Part-time Moscow and things.
Yeah, he was in my Shandong team. So he was pretty good when he wanted to be. Yelovich as well, in China.
Yep.
So maybe one of them. Hardest by far, Neymar. Play against Neymar.
I'll do it.
Yeah, play against Neymar in Brazil. And he was incredible. He was an absolute...
Were you playing right back at this time?
Yeah,
Was he playing off the left?
He was off the left. It was him and Marcelo It was me and a boy called Robbie Cruz.
Yeah.
On the right. So 2 household names up against Marcelo and Neymar. But yeah, we did really well. We lost 6-0. So we were actually delighted that it was only 6.
It was only 6.
Yeah. But they were, it was probably one of the only times I've ever been on a football pitch and thought I definitely don't deserve to be.
Kind of out my depth almost, that sort of.
Oh, completely out my depth, yeah. I was so far off it that it was incredible, but it was a great night out afterwards.
Take the positives.
Take the positives.
Take the positives. Let's go all things Livingston.
Yep.
Let's go into this. Firstly, Williams and Johnson, how did the move come around to come to home in the set for you?
Just got a call off a random number, and the voicemail was the gaffer just asking if I'd be interested in coming to Livingston, and that he wanted me to come in and speak to him. And I think it was a couple of days later that I came to the stadium, and I was just kind of impressed maybe at the setup. Obviously having played against him, you don't kind of see the things that are behind the scenes, and seeing the sort of setup that we have in the gym, and the things that he was wanting to bring in, and also the squad. He's quite keen on showing me the players that he's kept from last season, and the players that he was wanting to bring in, the types of players that he was wanting to bring in. Just sold the club quite well. Didn't overly tell me that we had a lot of double sessions, which was I only found out a bit later on. But he just kind of sold the club really well. And again, personally for me, living in Edinburgh, ticked a fair few boxes in terms of travelling and being able to get to see the kids a bit more. So just overall, it kind of ticked a lot more boxes than it didn't.
That was going to be one of my questions in terms of the infrastructure behind the scenes, because obviously that is our training base as well. So we're there every day, the gym's there, the darts are there.
Yeah, darts are there.
Was that a huge selling point for you, that everything's kind of in the one location almost? Yeah,
I think so. And I think, when you get to see like the change rooms and not the professionalism that's behind it, but, like the protein station and the ice baths, which I hate, but, they are part of what to do. And just knowing that the gym is there, that you can, again, I probably should use it a bit more than I do, but having all of that sort of there, all the recovery bikes. We've now got the chamber, the oxygen chamber as well, that the gaffer's just brought in. It is a good place to come in and work. You get your breakfast and your lunch, and all the staff like that are based at the club, which is good because you get to see the girls at the office and the staff behind the scenes and get to a relationship with them. Whereas at other clubs you kind of have that, it's only a match day experience, for example. You see, so even from the day that I was in, got to meet everybody that was a part of the club or working at the club at that time, and I just felt that having looking at the squad in depth of what we had and thinking that they weren't that far off, challenging up at the table, which we are. It just felt like the right fit at the right time.
So something attractive about it because of kind of, you obviously know everybody kind of football wise, but that off the side, you've got Karen and Jude at the front, you've got Jen, Dave, you've got Mo. That's about it.
You kind of know
the impact that it has on these people.
Yeah,
day to day.
Yeah, and you just know that they're all there and they live and breathe Livingston. They want the best for the club, and I'm not saying that other clubs that I've been at is like that, but sometimes there's
that more kind of personal bond with.
Yeah, there's sometimes like not too many people, but you kind of miss a few people there. Whereas anything that you want from the club or anything that you need help with, you know exactly who to go to, and they're straight on the case. They help you straight away. I remember, I think it was maybe the first or second day that I signed, the girls in the office were like, "Would you want strips for your kids? We can sort that out." Again, next day, strips are there. Cheb, you want names and that on the back. Little things like that was just instantly done, sorted out, and having that sort of working relationship and close group, kept a lot of the players from last year who have a bit of a point to prove, but also is a good group to work with the additions that he brought in before I came, and then even afterwards. It is a good recipe to have a successful season, which we we are having so far. But at the end of the season, it could be a really, really special one.
Did you speak to anybody else before you kind of come in, or are you one of these people that like to come in and just kind of make your own judgment on?
A little bit. Like I knew Jamie a little bit before, so I messaged him. Liam Fox, I kind of had a bit of a relationship. Marvin Bartley. So yeah, obviously do a little bit of homework on what you're getting into, but probably a lot of them lied about it, about what it would be. But no, it was good. It kind of, after I sort of had that meeting, I was pretty set on signing for the club, and it was just going through a few minor details to get it all sorted and over the line.
You've went from kind of chalk and cheese in terms of management, from the likes of Callum Davidson, who we've kind of discussed his personality, to Davey on the other side. Was that a wee bit of a shock initially, or?
No, I've played against his teams a lot to realise what he's like on the sidelines. But yeah, I think I'm just getting too old to worry about it too much. I actually really hope he's not watching this. Like a nearfall tomorrow. But yeah, I think that's just in his personality. It's his setup. I don't think he could be any different, even if he wanted to be. But as much as he can be like that at certain most moments during games, he's not like that sort of day to day. At training, he can if you're not doing what he wants you to do. But I think that's almost fair in terms of there's only so many times he can sort of tell you before he starts getting annoyed. But we've got Neil Hastings and Chipper as well, so that they're kind of there to help the gaffer, and they do take their bits in their training. So it's a good setup amongst the three of them.
See, in terms of the kind of Astro, did that ever kind of cross your mind in terms of decision making, that obviously you are getting a little bit older at this sort of stage? Like, does the Astro and the recovery actually come into your mind at that stage, or?
What came into my mind was that I would be able to spend more time at the training ground because it's so close to my house, that I would be able to recover and do things properly. Whereas if I maybe signed somewhere else that was a little bit further, I'd be spending longer in the car during the weeks. I can spend probably an hour here after training, doing the right things, or getting some treatment off our so-called physio, because I know who watches, get something off him, or
I'll try to get him on, to be fair.
Oh
yeah.
You don't want him on, anyways.
That beard.
Yeah, it's just don't want him on. Get Cheb on. You might need to get censored, but
we're going to do a double act of him and Cheb together.
Yeah, no, you're never getting that. That will never see the light of day. You can record it, but it'll never be able to see the light of day. To go out. But yeah, just being able to do those types of things, as much as it kind of, the ice bath after training in the rain isn't great.
Yeah,
but they obviously really want you to do it, and it does. I'm not sure it does help you, but those little things, I did feel would probably help my career, and churning out games and being able to perform at a decent enough level each and every week was something that I felt, being close to home and being able to spend that little bit more time here, and also the sort of stuff that I've always heard is if your body only sort of starts breaking down if you're mixing and matching. Most of I think it's 8 of the teams in the league are all Astro.
Far off, yeah.
So there is only a couple of games.
Yeah.
Couple of games per season that you're playing on grass, and because we're training on the same surfaces, you don't tend to pick up as many injuries. It's I probably felt my sort of knees and ankles possibly at St. Johnstone more when we were one day on the grass, next day on the Astro, next day on the grass, game on it. When you flipping surfaces constantly, that tends to be when your body sort of breaks down. Whereas we kind of have one pitch during the week.
Yeah.
If we're playing at home that week, we've probably got 12, 13 days in a row of playing on the same surface, which your body kind of quickly adapts to.
We had almost a perfect start, unbeaten in the opening quarter of the kind of league season, other than that Spartans game. Kind of League Cup, how frustrating is that?
Yeah, it was really frustrating, I think.
It was the only goal we conceded in the League Cup and group stages.
Yeah.
Which knocked us out.
Yeah, I know. It was a soft goal to concede, and it was bitterly disappointing because you obviously want to do well in the cup competitions and progress. And I felt that as a group we should have progressed, albeit that we didn't. But I felt like we should have. We had enough opportunities in some of the other games probably to score a couple more goals. I think it was only a goal that we ended up actually being knocked out of, and kind of shows you in the Scottish Cup run that if you do progress, sometimes the draw can be kind to you and get you through and get to a quarterfinal or a semi-final. But I think we quickly switched our focus onto the sort of Trust Trophy and making sure that we started the league campaign well, which we obviously did, and I think we were unbeaten for opening 9 games.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
So that probably in hindsight was that little sort of switch on reminder that if we don't do the things that we work on in training, that we can get beat, and gave us that little reset before the season, which has probably worked out well.
Does it put more kind of impetus on the Trust Trophy? Because it's been seen for years in Scotland as a kind of backup competition. We'll use it for rotation and everything, all those sort of lines, but does it actually put more impetus on it because we don't have that League Cup to kind of focus on, or do you have that mindset of we just want to win it?
Yeah, obviously you want to win it. I think other clubs possibly use it as something. I think some clubs use it as maybe rotation as an excuse as to why they've been knocked out. I'm sure that everyone would want to be in the final and winning that trophy. That's definitely what we want to do and achieve as a club. You'd have to ask the manager if he felt like in the earlier rounds or the semi-final that he wanted to change it. But I think when you have a cup final and something to win, and it only breeds confidence and gets players playing in sort of bigger games, that it's not just your run-of-the-mill league games. So it's a really exciting sort of last 3 or 4 months of the season, with that final coming up, with the Scottish Cup draw and with obviously our league position. We feel like we can do well in all 3 of those competitions.
Wasn't the easiest run to get to the final, to be fair. Kind of Spartans away, who'd not to the League Cup, Inverness, Morton. Inverness obviously predominantly a championship team. I know they got relegated last year, but Morton as well, and then Dunfermline away is always difficult. We obviously took a bit of a sore one.
Earlier on in the season.
Previously, so it's nice to get one back on them.
Yeah, and you're kind of keeping that rhythm of playing against good opposition and working out ways to beat them. And it feels like we've played Dunfermline about 15 times since I've joined. I remember we got them in the cup competition, then we had them at the start of the league, and then I think we had a
bounce against them as well.
Played friendly against them. I think I had 7 appearances for Livingston. I think 4 or 5 were against Dunfermline. So it was good to obviously win the semi-final. I thought that we did well enough, or we did enough to win the game.
Quite tricky with the surface and things as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a few things that came into play, and I think they had made a few changes as well, which probably possibly helped us. But to be in a final, and it's something that fans and us players can look forward to. I think it's the end of March that the final is, and you go on and win that. It gives you a little bit more confidence going into the league campaign, and fingers crossed that it all works out well.
Let's touch on the Scottish. Obviously beat Cove. There you got your first goal for the club.
Great goal, yeah. The rewards of scoring goals.
I don't know if I said that on comms, but we'll skip by that. Firstly, we'll go with Dingwall away. Wonderful scenes, wonderful celebrations at the end. I think you're in with the crowd at one point, but how enjoyable was that? Yeah,
it was a great win, and they're the wins that sometimes squads need. Even the sort of the way that the last goal is across all 3 subs, across Andy Winter, knocked down, and the Shinny scores, and they're 3 players who probably would have been disappointed that they didn't start, but they come on and help us to progress, and last minute winners.
What's your view of Andrew Shinnie at that stage? Because from looking from the kind of main stand, I just couldn't believe that he had that much room.
Yeah,
kind of in the middle.
I thought
of the
maybe
box
it might have been offside from obviously the halfway line where I was watching it.
Yeah.
And then I thought that he scuffed it, which he did. You might say he didn't, but it probably worked out well for him. I was just thinking he just needs to keep this down, and it would be a goal. And I also thought his top was coming off, which would have been a fine.
I think he kind of, if you watch it back, he goes to
do it, and then he realises that he's 35 and balding, so he has to stop what he's doing. It was good moments, and obviously good for the fans that travelled up. They travelled up in good numbers, and for those types of moments, I think is makes it all worthwhile for them coming up, and then we've been rewarded with obviously 2 home games followed up, and 2 good obviously we beat Cove, but the good opportunities to try and progress into a semi-final.
Absolutely. The defensive partnership, let's kind of go on to that. It was kind of yourself and Big Knots at the kind of start of the season. Danny Wilson's kind of stepped into that since he's kind of become a little bit fitter as well. How are those guys to kind of play alongside?
Yeah, great. Really enjoyed playing with both of them. Knots did well at the start of the season. I think we kept a lot of clean sheets, but I think sometimes similar to when strikers score, they get all the accolades. When you get a clean sheet, it kind of tends to kind of be the centre backs and the goalie. But I think especially at the start of the season, it was a collective effort. The way that if we have the boys in the midfield, they can make our job a lot easier. They run a lot. As they remind me every Monday, they run a lot further than what possibly me and Danny and Knots do. So
having like Pitts in there, for example.
They continually run, or Stevie May and Teddy up front, who just press non-stop, and even Reece covers the ground. Like all of our players have to cover a lot of distance, probably besides us centre backs. So we're the kind of luckier ones that just kind of have to marshal everybody. And I think the clean sheets is something that, as nearly one of the assistant coaches, the kind of defensive coach as such, he has a big sort of strong view on keeping clean sheets. And the more clean sheets we can keep, we always feel that we can score goals and that will lead us to win more games, or at least not lose games. So there's a big emphasis on keeping a clean sheet.
How important is it to have the trust of trusting Jerome kind of in behind as well? Like, we all know what he can do in terms of kind of distribution and things that come with that, but he's a very good goalkeeper in the same sense. Yeah, he's really came into his own, and with Shamel leaving into the sort of end of August, wasn't it? There's probably a few question marks as to how we would cope or how we would get on, and I think we've really done well. I think his credit to him, coming in and just being really commanding as such. He's very good with the ball at his feet and helps with the way that we want to play. He doesn't say too much, throughout the game, but he's very clear in his directions when he does speak. So we sort of have that good balance, and I think we've got a really good squad balance as such in terms of, like you said, whether it's me and Danny, or Danny and Knots, or me and Knots at the back, and same with the right back and left back. Clarkie's done really well throughout the season. Robbie's come in. There will be injuries and changes, same as Dan Finlayson. He's come on. It's really tough coming on sometimes in games, and Dan's come on in the last couple of games and just done really, really well, whether that be from a defensive side or an attacking side. So, having those kind of options all over the pitch is really good for the squad and definitely helps us. Can you still learn at this age? Or can you still learn? So do you still feel like you can develop at this age as a footballer, or are you kind of at that stage where you want to kind of pass on wisdom and kind of...
I can definitely still learn. I don't think I'll be playing for Real Madrid, but I can definitely still learn. I was disappointed with giving away a penalty against Falkirk. I thought, personally should have dealt with that situation better. Still reflect on games of what I could have done better or what I've done well. Also, helping players around me and trying to bring a bit of calmness and composure is a key at my stage of my career. Is that is one of my sort of roles and responsibilities, is to make sure that players are doing that during the game, not making the same mistakes. But we just have a good group that do that automatically, really. There's not been many occasions where I felt that the team needs a rocket or that the team are not doing what we were set out to do. No doubt there's been moments throughout the season where we have kind of done our own thing and been punished for it. But I think on the whole, this group wants to be successful and wants to play, the way that we want to do it, and they're not purposely going out to do the wrong thing. So there's not been that many things that I've had to say or do. And like I said, it's a really good group to work within. Sometimes when players do make mistakes or do something, they don't need me shouting at them or Jamie shouting at them or the gaffer or anyone else shouting at them. You as a player know that you've maybe not done it, but you've not done it on purpose. And I think as long as you're always trying to do the right thing, then which most of the squad are, it's a good environment to be in.
Do you have that sort of kind of mentorship? So I've kind of spoken to Knots away from this, and I know he kind of looks after the likes of Cody Stark, for example.
Yeah.
He can see the difference in his own kind of stuff, even in the house. Then I think he's doing stuff with Cheb as well in terms of the kit and everything else.
Yeah.
Do you kind of mentor anybody in particular, or do you just kind of react to think?
I got a little soft spot for Lucas Stenhouse and for Big Sam. Played darts with them a little bit, and I think that's just a good way for us to have a relationship. And delighted for Sam for coming on in that game, and here's one that has that ability possibly to come and make a career out of it. There's still lots of things that he has to work on, but he's I think all of the sort of youth players, they're all good kids, which is what you want to have really. They're all eager to learn. They all want to do the right things. Lucas is a bit different because he's obviously been out on loan and now he's stepped up on loan to Bonnyrigg. So he's now going to face those challenges of how does he break into the team? How does he work his way into the starting 11? How does he handle, Bonnyrigg are in a different position to what we are as such. They're fighting for their lives and trying to stay in the league, play a different type of football. How does he adapt to that? How does he make sure that he gets the best out of him? He probably can't be dribbling it as much because the pitch isn't great. So how does he then become effective in the game? So he'll have all those types of things to work out.
It's almost quite similar to yourself though, isn't it, when kind of going out on loan early doors and things?
Yeah.
Playing in adult dressing rooms essentially.
Yeah.
They're not getting the experience of playing here, so get out and play.
And he's quite chirpy and
Bonnyrigg and Darvel for Sam, for example.
Just getting out and having those experiences, and even being able to come back. We always ask all the young boys. I think Tommy's maybe gone out on loan as well. How they got on at the weekend, and do try and always check the results, because I remember how good it was when I was out on loan and one of the players would say, "Oh, I've seen that you won at the weekend, or I've seen that you've done something." Just knowing that someone else is possibly looking out and knowing that. So but yeah, we do have a good group of young boys. They could be better. They could clean the kit a bit better and help out Cheb instead of playing darts. So sometimes it's annoying when we're in a good darts game and they're like, "Oh, you have to go help Cheb."
Good help Cheb.
So I'm like, "Oh, I'll speak to Cheb, just stay for 10 more minutes." But overall they're really good kids, and fingers crossed they go on and have good careers.
Perfect. Plans after football? Last kind of section, you're obviously heavily involved in sort of media stuff at the moment, whether that be kind of commentary, punditry. You've done a few podcasts. Do you like that sort of fun element with a wee bit of football talk within that, or do you like the kind of serious stuff in terms of the commentary?
Bit of both. I don't mind. I don't know if it's the accent or if, like you said, the 15 or 20 clubs that I've played for. I do think I've got some relatively good stories or some different insight as to maybe somebody that's just played their whole career in one club or in a couple of clubs. So I do sometimes feel like that's why I get picked for different types of podcasts, because I've travelled all over the world and played with hundreds of different players. But I don't mind that side of football, and I think it's just because I obviously I enjoy listening to podcasts and I enjoy listening to other people's stories. I do find it strange sometimes doing one thinking half nobody would be interested in what I have to say, but it is something that I do enjoy doing. The commentary and the punditry side, and trying to get into that and trying to do that, but it is a little bit difficult sometimes, as you're still playing and you don't want to say something too outlandish because you might be up against them in a couple of weeks' time. So you have to be a little bit careful, but the club and the gaffer's relatively good. I just need to, if I miss a recovery session because of the game, I need to bring in some donuts for the boys. But other than that, they've been pretty good with letting me away or allowing me to do the sort of Sky stuff or the games on a Sunday. So
was that always your kind of plan after football, or did you think you were coaching?
I kind of spoke to the gaffer and said that if things did come up, that I would want to be doing them, because I'm not getting any younger, and that is something that I am interested in, and the gaffer was fine with it at the start of the season. So I've holding his word to it a little bit, but it's something that I'm interested in. Done a couple of media courses and creative media courses, and I'm doing an applied football management course now for obviously if you want to be a manager or director of football or CEO of a football club. So I'm enjoying that now.
I guess it just kind of widens your knowledge, I suppose. And
yeah, just trying to understand. Like I said, most of my footballing career has just been from 10 to 1, this football side of things. But I understand that running a football club isn't that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and just understanding that, I think, helps you as not only, I feel like it helps me as an older player as well, because you can understand why the club makes certain decisions, or why the gaffers may be changing training, and all of those kind of things that maybe when I was younger I just thought was a punishment, or I didn't quite understand it. Now you realise that there's a bit of method behind the madness.
Actual thought that goes into this.
Yeah, although sometimes still question that. But so it has been good.
I know Dave Black does watch, so.
Right. Yeah, well, depending on how this course goes, it could be could be his shadow.
Under serious P.
Yeah, I'm going to actually speak to him. I'm going to shadow him for a bit to see what he actually does and see the ins and outs of running a football club. But like I said, I've not had a bad experience or word to say about anyone that works at the club. But yeah, that's probably something. I think, I've kind of questioned it. I've spent, like I said, probably, what is it now? Almost 20 years. Will probably be 21 years by the time I retire in football, professional football outfit. It'd almost be a little bit silly of me to just push that to one side and try and go in a different direction. But there's also definitely moments where I think I would love to run away and do something totally different. So we'll kind of see. I'm not under huge pressure. I feel like I've still got, maybe Gaffer might say it differently, but I think I've got a couple more seasons in me to see how I go and stay injury free and see how we go.
This is episode 3 of Down the Vale. We've been joined by Mr. Ryan McGowan. Ryan, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
No worries.
Really do appreciate it. As I said, we're here at Taylor Talks Trades. You can check out their stuff in the description box below. Make sure you like and subscribe and go from there.
No worries. There's a few of the boys that went on the podcast as well.
So I've got Shins lined up.
Shins, right.
I think we're talking about doing
Stevie May was disappointed that he wasn't been asked.
Do you want to shout?
Reese McAleer and Stephen Kelly and Jamie Brandon were all disappointed.
Okay.
And Robbie Muirhead, he wants to come on.
Robbie Muirhead especially.
Yeah, he really wants to come on.
That'll be Robbie Muirhead that was standing outside hospitality last week saying, "I need to speak in here."
Yeah.
That Robbie Muirhead.
Yeah.
Is he quiet in the dressing room, or is he full of life?
He's full of life. He's a really good kid. So try and get him on. He would be a good guest.